Nilsson i Hörby försvann den 20 mars 1989. Hon hittades mördad 6 dagar senare. Den 13 juni 1992 skulle Helén Andersson...
Helén Nilsson was 10 years old when she disappeared from her family. She was living with her 2 parents and 2 older siblings in Hörby, Sweden. On the 20th of March 1989, she had asked her parents for permission to go outside and meet her friends after dinner. Her parents said yes, and off she went. Little did anyone know at that time that it would be the last time any of them would see her alive again. Helian's parents wondered where she were, but they thought that she was probably playing with her friends and that she just lost track of time. That is until Helian's friends knocked on their door and asked them if Helian could come out and play. When a child disappears in Sweden, the searches start immediately, and the search for Helian was far and wide. The only clue they had was one witness. She was a former nanny to Helian, and she had seen the child pass by her window at 7 p.m. that night. Shortly after, she saw a man with a dog on a leash walk by, and then even heard what sounded like a child scream. Time passed as the hours became days, and 6 days after her disappearance, a woman and her daughter was out picking mushrooms when they saw a conspicuous black plastic bag laying beside a pile of stones. The woman got her husband and he went to investigate the bag. The man poked a hole in the bag and there he saw a human leg. He contacted the police right away. Before the police showed up, the man saw a very suspicious green Volvo drive back and forth, very slowly. 3 plastic bags of a very uncommon brand, most likely purchased in Denmark. They also noted that the bag was wired together in brown tape. They quickly realized the dead body was the missing girl Helian, and they also quickly realized that she had met a very dark and horrifying death. They would find hair on the tape and note that the body was completely naked except for a wristwatch on her left arm. Rigor mortis had set in, and livor mortis had began to set in. Grass at the side of the body was relatively untouched, so the cops concluded that she had been dumped there recently. A witness who walked by the area 3 days earlier would also corroborate that there was no plastic bag there at that point. On a closer inspection of the evidence and the corpse, the following was concluded. 6 dog hairs were found, 1 cat hair was found, 4 human hairs were found, 1 of which was Helian's, 2 of which was from a scalp of the assailant, and the last one was a pubic hair from the same assailant. She had been strangled, but the strangulation was not the cause of her death. As a result of the strangulation, she had points of blood in her eyes, damage inside her throat, on her neck and on her windpipes. Helian had also been raped days before her death, as the killer's semen was found inside her vagina, which was torn as a result of the rape conducted by the adult pedophile cunt. Acetone was found in Helian's bloodstream, a sign of starvation. Given that evidence, it's likely to say she was starved for days before she was killed. But if the strangulation didn't kill her and the starvation didn't kill her, then what did? Well, I was just about to tell you that. Helian had suffered 20 wounds to her head. She had been repeatedly struck, first by a blunt object and then by a sharp object. Her skull was broken, her nose was broken, and she had a wound in her cheek and bruises all over her body, but the fatal wound was the extreme trauma caused to her brain. It was also concluded that she had died less than a day of being found. Now, I'm sorry if the details of this is hard to listen to, but I want to do this right, and this is just the beginning of a roller coaster of a fucking case. So we have 1 dead girl and an unknown killer so far. But it won't take more than a few months for this fucked up guy to kill again. Jannica Ekblad had lived a troublesome life. She suffered a drug habit, and to feed her habit, she had in the past resorted to prostitution. Jannica had made plans with her younger half-brother to travel after he got out of prison to overcome their addiction together, but that would never happen. Jannica was 26 years old when she disappeared. She was working on improving her life, and she had recently met a man she wanted to get serious with. But she couldn't get out of her situation just yet. She had a debt to a pimp, and therefore needed a few more customers to get out of the lifestyle for good. It was because of this that she had set up a meeting with a man on August 3rd, 1989. The man she was about to meet was known among her and her friends as a potentially dangerous customer, but she needed the money, although she did take minor precautions and told one of her friends that if she didn't come back, that she should call the police. The man was long and thin and picked up Jannica in a Volvo, and that was the last time she was seen alive. On August 4th, only one day after Jannica had stepped into the car, a woman found her corpse laying at a rest stop beside a stretch of road in southern Sweden. The body was laying there completely naked except for a silver necklace and 2 rings. Rigor mortis had set in rather heavily, and one of the body's toes were abnormally stretched out. Her hair was filled with dried up blood, and she had bruises and wounds all over her body. There wasn't much blood on the body itself, as the killer had washed it off with water before dumping it. But there was a lot of fibers, animal food pellets, dirt and hair found on and around the body. A bloody rope was laying beside her head, and another rope was laying beside her feet. 35 meters away, a plastic bag with dried blood was found, and the blood was later proved to be Jannica's. The autopsy showed that she had not been killed where she was found, but that she had been transported in a vehicle and been washed off with water less than 2 hours after death. The abnormally long toe most likely had occurred during a violent struggle, as spasms would have occurred shortly before death. She had been dead for about 6 to 10 hours before the autopsy, and all hair, fibers, pellets, ropes and dirt had been transported with the body. 61 hairs on her body came from a dog, and 7 hairs was from a cat. Jannica had been strangled with either a noose or with bare hands, and as a result her throat and neck was damaged, as well as having some skin scraped off. But just like with Helian, this wasn't the cause of death. The cause of death had been 18 crushing wounds to her head with a blunt object. Her skull was broken, her facial skeleton was broken, and her brain was severely damaged. She also had defensive wounds in the form of some cuts and bruises, specifically on her hand and arms. Jannica had also been raped, and semen was obtained from her vagina. She also had a minor tear in her liver, as well as morphine and codeine in her bloodstream. A violent fate for a girl trying to find the right path in life, but instead found a creepy loser with a hard-on for murder. He was done killing now, but we still have the wild investigation to cover, as well as the phone calls and letters he made to the lead investigator. So, stick around. The Swedish police was conducting one of their biggest investigations ever conducted before in Sweden. At this point they didn't have too much to go on except for a semen sample and some witness description. That is until the killer made his first contact with law enforcement. In late 1989, a letter had been sent in to the police. The message consisted of cut out words from a newspaper, and it said, "The murder of Helén and Yanika. Why? It's revenge. Yeah, the fucking loneliness and bullied at work by girls." 2 years later, on April 6th, 1991, the lead investigator would make an appearance on the radio to discuss the case. On that same evening, the investigator received a phone call to his home. It was an unknown person calling, but he would reveal that he was the killer. The investigator wrote down what the killer had said during all of his phone calls, and I'm now going to read everything he said to you. Everything has been translated by me.
I don't know what to say. I'm so fucking lonely. I'm lonely and bullied at work, a lot of broads. I heard you on the radio, you seemed honest. I'm calling so that you don't keep investigating your suspects. You have never talked to me. I have never committed a crime before. I posted the letter with the cutout letters from the Central Hospital in Kristianstad. The letter came from Expressen. Regret it so fucking much. Unforgivable, completely alone, no relatives. Just washed over me. Helén was murdered at 6 p.m. on the Tuesday. She had 2 bags over her head and 1 around her legs. Jannica was on drugs. She had a drug needle with her. I became aggressive. I can't stand people using drugs. Both Jannica's and Helén's clothes have been sorted out. Helén was laying with her head pointing towards the road. Jannica's head was pointing to Hässleholm. I can't tell you anymore. I'll get 20 years.
The investigator could hear background noise from the caller's end, and he concluded that it sounded like he was calling from a train station. The investigator therefore sent police to the Malmö Central Station to look around, and on 6:50 p.m. the caller called back. This time he said,
I hung up because 2 cops walked by. I'm a normal factory worker and I've never been married or living with a partner before. I've got company.
The caller called back again a third time at 8:55 p.m.
Fuck, there's a lot of cops here now. I can't stand it. There's no excuse for what I've done. It was pure coincidence that I picked her. Please tell her parents that. I can't look them in the eye. I can't stand loneliness. I put Helén in my service the day after she disappeared.
A fourth call came in at 9:32 p.m.
Why was the call broken up? Are you tracking me? I hit them with a metal pipe. They're different pipes but kinda similar. I strangled them both with a nylon rope 8mm blue. The dog hair you found came from my friend's dog. I haven't had access to any other animals. I bought the plastic bags from Biltema or Totte in Hurva.
The last call came in at 9:48 p.m.
You don't understand how lonely I am. Fucking loneliness. I'm ashamed. What I've done is unforgivable. You don't need to worry about it happening again. You don't need to think about your other suspects. I did them both. Explain to Helén's parents. Jannica was transported in a rug. You're never gonna find the rug. I was gonna pay 2,000 for a full night. She had only gotten into the car when she started talking about drugs. I got furious when she talked about drugs.
Of course, there's a few things here that sort of shows how he is trying to manipulate the situation by saying it was his friend's dog. He didn't even mention a cat, probably because narrowing down suspects to dog owners makes it easier, and narrowing it down to people that own both a cat and a dog makes it way easier. In November 2002, 2 men were arrested for the murder of Helén, and on November 20 the investigators got a call from the real killer once again.
You got the wrong guys locked up. I did it. We talked about 10 years ago when you sent cops to Malmö Central.
The caller went on to explain that a Tommy Falk had forced him and 2 others to commit the murders. Of course that's bullshit, as only the one killer's sperm was identified. However, the guy kept insisting and sent them a letter. Take note, the misspellings here isn't a result of my flawed translation skills. It's the illiterate idiots writing to the cops.
I'm writing this to you to prove that it's true. Tommy Falk made us have sex with Helén and Jannica. We were so young then and afraid. We didn't dare doing anything, but what he told us to, we would have gotten hell. He himself used a condom, so he didn't even leave a trace after himself. He isn't worth much more than getting his balls ripped off and shoved down his throat. That fucking piss cunt ruined the life for the 3 of us.
On May 26th, the newly appointed investigator received a call. The caller asked for the old investigator and stated it was about Helén and Jannica.
I got them both,
he said, and the investigator told him he had gotten the wrong number and asked for his name. That's when the caller said,
"Do you think I'm stupid?"
and then hung up. He called again later and simply said,
"It's all done now,"
before hanging up. On May 31st, police received a diskette containing a text message that said,
"There's nothing to say. If I hadn't been bullied and harassed in Herbie Elementary, it probably wouldn't have happened. Only I was involved. Helian and Jannica."
This dumb fuck keeps getting the name of Jannica wrong. What a cunt. Police would eventually crank up the volume and started swabbing suspects like crazy. On June 9th, after a tip that I will go into more in the next and final chapter, police swabbed a certain individual. This so-called individual was Ulf Olsson, and he was the killer they searched for since 1989. But who is Ulf Olsson? We'll get to that in a second. Ulf Olsson was born 1951 in Hör. His father was a chauffeur, if that's how you say it, and his mom was a store clerk. He grew up with 4 siblings. Ulf denied ever being bullied in school, but he did have a hard family life. His mom was emotionally unavailable and cold to her kids, and his father liked to drink and physically punish him. Ulf ran away from home several times during his early teens, and at the age of 16 he was diagnosed with depression. Ulf later joined the Swedish military and worked in the Navy. After his military endeavors, he worked at sea for many years. Apparently he loved working at sea. He returned to work as a toolmaker between 1976 and 1984. During this time, Ulf was married to a woman. They had met when she was 16 and they married once she turned 18. Ulf abused his wife, and this abuse eventually caused the marriage to shatter. Although Ulf claimed it was because his wife cheated on him. And who knows, but I wouldn't blame her. During this time, Ulf had also confided in a friend that he had cruelly and extremely violently killed a kitten. Ulf got a new job in 1987 and was known among female colleagues as a pervert, specifically for his perverted jokes and comments, one of which would eventually lead to the tip that brought him down, but I'll say more about that later. Ulf was known as Uffe the Pervert amongst colleagues. It is also known that during this time he had some male friends he liked to party with, and that he occasionally would fuck with them. I know, right? But hey, no homo, right? 1989, living alone while strolling around, the day he came across 10-year-old Helén. He abducted and took her to his cabin. There he sexually violated her and probably then realized what a mistake he had committed. He couldn't let her go now. He had abducted a child and raped her. He would be locked up. So in his hesitation, he put her in the shack, hoping she would starve to death. Days went by and she wouldn't die, so he attempted to strangle her. However, strangling a person to death in real life takes some real time and effort, and he wasn't aware of this. So that didn't work. He instead picked up a pipe and finished the job that way. A few months later, he had paid for a full night of sex with Yanika, but he got so furious when she wanted drugs that he attacked her, raping and strangling her. Yanika fought back hard and really gave him a run for his money. Then he did to her what he did to Helén. He picked up a pipe and bashed in the head several times. We know this murder was committed in his cabin, as a lot of blood from Jannica was found beneath the floorboards 15 years later. Later that year, Ulf met a new woman and moved in with her. She quickly got pregnant with Ulf's one and only child, a boy. Ulf had followed in his father's footsteps, and he had become a heavy drinker, and with his heavy mood shifts he loved to torment and tease his pregnant wife, calling her fat. But this time he didn't abuse his partner physically. That's something, I guess. They both owned dogs and cats, and Ulf once told his girlfriend that he had done something he couldn't tell her about until the case was prescribed. The couple moved to Vimmerby in 1990, and that year his son was born, but before moving, Ulf executed his own dog as he felt it unnecessary to have two dogs now that they were moving to an apartment. The guy shot his fucking dog. One time, when his girlfriend was out of town, he decided to kill her dog too. Ulf kept showing his true colors when he attempted to kick his wife out of the house after finding her smoking on the balcony. Eventually she had enough, and she moved away from him. Ulf was despaired. His stupid brain couldn't understand why she would leave. Now, let's talk about the thing I said I was gonna mention. During an office party, Ulf had told a female colleague that when he worked at sea he used to go to brothels. And when he was in a brothel in Brazil he had sex with an 8-year-old kid. Ulf went on bragging about how it was the best sex he ever had to this Swedish middle-aged woman who was just horrified by what this creepy guy was saying. Years later this woman would tell a friend to hers that used to work in law enforcement about this, and her friend told her to say this to the police. She did, and that's how Ulf became a suspect and was eventually brought down. Ulf just kept stating his innocence despite the clear evidence of his guilt. He even claimed the sperm found inside the dead girls' vaginas was planted there by the cops. Yeah. He was eventually sent to a psychiatric institute in Sundsvall in 2004 and would remain there until his death. Ulf started writing a blog online while he was locked up, talking about all kinds of shit. In 2010 Ulf gave up. He wrote a suicide letter stating that he had no point in living and that he would never be let out. He also kept stating his innocence, but of course he was very guilty. He also uploaded some weird goodbye clip on his blog. It was a video of dog photos with music playing and some sort of weird tribute to himself. Then he hung himself in his cell. The killer died, alone and broken. And that's the end of the video. Yeah, what the fuck was I gonna say? Yeah, I translated everything myself from court documents and autopsy shit and all stuff like that. And so, yeah. I just want
if some of it
sounds stupid, I guess, nonsensical, then that's my fault, I guess. Except for when I was quoting what he said, because he's a fucking
retard, yeah.
Thank you for watching and good night.
Laja, play ticker.
What's up, nigga? Gangsta rap, nigga.
Bobby, can you talk to play wheel?
Nigga. I'm 100% nigga.
Oh.
Nigga.